The air inside the massive theater of America's Got Talent 2025 was charged with excitement. Lights flashed, cameras whirred, and the audience buzzed with anticipation. But backstage, tucked away in a quiet corner, a young girl named Lily Carter stood clutching the worn neck of a cheap second-hand guitar. Her hands trembled, not just from nerves, but from years of being told she wasn't good enough. Lily was only 16, but life had already thrown her into battles that would break most adults. She grew up in a small rusted trailer on the outskirts of Dayton, Ohio. Her father had disappeared when she was 8, leaving her mother to juggle 2 diner jobs to keep the lights on. Clothes were thrift store finds, dinners were sometimes just buttered bread, and Christmas presents were whatever neighbors felt like donating. School was the hardest part. Kids whispered and laughed at her faded jeans and scuffed shoes. They'd make jokes about how she smelled like old French fries, because her mom's uniform always reeked of diner grease. Lily tried to shrink into herself, hoping if she stayed quiet enough, the world would forget she existed. But the teasing never stopped. Her only escape was music. When her mom brought home a broken guitar from a yard sale, missing 2 strings and covered in stickers, Lily taught herself how to play. She'd sit outside their trailer under the big oak tree, strumming for hours, pouring her feelings into melodies. Music didn't judge her. Music didn't care about her shoes. Still, never in a million years did she think she'd end up on a stage like AGT. It happened because of her choir teacher, Mrs. Reynolds, who caught her singing alone in the empty school auditorium one afternoon. "Lily," she'd said, tears in her eyes, "you have a gift, and the world needs to hear it." Mrs. Reynolds paid the audition fee herself and even drove Lily to Chicago for the tryouts. But now, waiting backstage, Lily could hear the crowd's laughter from earlier acts, the quick rise and fall of applause, and something inside her twisted. She knew what people saw, a skinny girl in a faded dress that didn't quite fit, holding a guitar that looked like it belonged in a pawnshop window. When her name was called, "Next up, Lily Carter." She stepped onto the stage, her eyes blinking against the blinding lights. The judges sat in their seats, polished and perfect: Simon Cowell, Sofia Vergara, Howie Mandel, and Heidi Klum. Simon's brow lifted almost imperceptibly. "Hello, Lily. How old are you, and what will you be doing today?" "I'm 16, she said softly, her voice catching. "I'll be singing an original song I wrote, about home." Somewhere in the audience, a muffled laugh rippled through a few rows. The camera caught 2 teenage girls in designer jackets snickering. Lily's throat tightened, but she kept her eyes on her guitar. Simon tilted his head. "All right, Lily. Let's hear it." The first chord buzzed faintly from her cheap guitar, but when she began to sing, the theater changed. Her voice was pure yet raw, fragile yet powerful, the kind that wrapped around your heart and refused to let go. She sang about a little trailer with a leaky roof, about counting stars through cracks in the ceiling. About her mom's tired hands and the smell of coffee at 4 a.m. She sang about being invisible at school, about wishing she could trade shoes with someone, anyone, just to know what it felt like to belong. But the chorus soared. "Home isn't walls, it's the arms that hold you. It's the light in the dark when the night feels cold through. It's love, even when the cupboards are bare. It's knowing someone's always there." By the time she reached the last line, her voice trembling with emotion, the theater was silent. And then, suddenly, there was a sound Lily had never expected: people rising to their feet. The entire audience was giving her a standing ovation. Heidi's eyes were shining. "Lily, that was beautiful. You made us feel every word." Howie leaned forward. "You have something that can't be taught, it's heart. And that's why everyone in here is standing right now." Sophia smiled warmly. "I love you already. You're a star." Simon, who was usually the hardest to impress, paused for a long moment before speaking. "Lily, you walked out here and I wasn't sure. I think a lot of people weren't sure. But then you started singing, and you reminded us all what this show is really about, finding someone with a real story and a real gift. And you are the real deal." Then, in a move that made the crowd erupt, Simon pressed the golden buzzer. Gold confetti exploded from the ceiling, raining down on Lily as she covered her face in disbelief. The same kids in the crowd who had snickered moments earlier were now clapping and cheering with everyone else. Backstage, Mrs. Reynolds was sobbing into her hands. But what happened next was what no one saw coming. As the stagehands swept the confetti, a woman from the audience stood up and spoke into the quiet hum of excitement. "Lily," she said, her voice breaking, "I was one of those kids who made fun of you in middle school." The woman, now in her 20s, had tears streaming down her face. "I used to laugh at your clothes. I'm so sorry. I didn't understand then, but now I see you. And I'm proud of you." Lily's eyes filled with tears. She wanted to hate this girl for all the years she'd stolen from her. But instead, she walked to the edge of the stage, extended her hand, and said, "Thank you. That means more than you know." In that moment, the theater wasn't just watching a talent show, they were witnessing something bigger. Forgiveness. Healing. The clip went viral overnight. Not just because of Lily's voice, but because of the way she treated someone who had hurt her. Comment sections flooded with stories of people reconnecting, apologizing, forgiving. When the finale came months later, Lily didn't win first place. But she didn't need to. Record labels called, talk shows invited her on, and a charity offered to pay for her college tuition. More importantly, her story became a reminder that you can't measure someone's worth by the money in their pockets or the clothes on their back. On the night of the finale, as she looked out over the glittering crowd, Lily thought of her mom, sitting in the front row, wearing the same diner uniform she'd worn for years. She thought of the little trailer, the leaky roof, the oak tree. And she smiled. Because for the first time in her life, she knew she belonged, not because she'd changed to fit in, but because she had stayed exactly who she was. And that, more than anything, was worth more than gold.